Oh, poor sweet Hootzifer. Your only friendship is over as fast as it started. I can't even keep a straight face. This episode was really good. This is, as the title says, a review of the 4th episode of the 2nd season of The Owl House, which was keeping up A-Fear-Ances. And it's one of those episode titles where I kind of get why it's titled that, but also, man, there's like 600 things that would be a better title. Specifically because this show, if you guys don't know this, and this is something I'm going to be talking about, maybe in my upcoming theory I might cut it and save it for later, but at some point in the future, this show, the first letter of each episode title spells something. Like, it's really fun to, like, see it for the first time, so go and read out what the first letter of each episode title of Season 1 spells out. And it seems pretty obvious that the K in Keeping Up Appearances was just necessary for whatever the Season 2 titles are going to spell. And we have some ideas already. The first 4 episodes spell out seek, which, man, this season seems to be doing a lot of seeking. There's been lore in every episode so far. Like, holy shit. What's most annoying about this episode, though, I say that, like, there's a lot of annoying things about this episode. And there kind of are, but not, like, annoying. Like, things that are in narrative supposed to be annoying. The only annoying thing about this episode in general, though, is that they finally gave us an actual reason for how it is possible that Ida could have been the one to write the letters to Luce's mom. We see at the very beginning that her mom, Ida's mom, wanted to cure the curse so badly that she threatened to cut the curse out of her daughter rather than simply keep it at bay with elixirs, and causing Ida to run off, which caused her to trip over the dimension door and use it for the first time to escape from Earth to get away from her own mother. And this is when she was still pretty young. And knowing that she's been using the door for that long, and seeing how she stumbled into the human realm for the first time when she was basically a kid and wouldn't have really been very worldly yet, for lack of a better term, it suggests that she might have, interacted with people there a little bit and learned a little bit about Earth, enough to send those letters anyway. But then something happens at the end of the episode which seems to yank that idea right out from under us. But I'll talk about that in a minute. Because first and foremost, this episode was an introduction to, what was her name? Gwendolyn? Was it Gwendolyn? I think that's right. I'm so bad with names. You guys know this by now, though. Ida and Lilith's mom. It was our introduction to Ida and Lilith's mom. Like, we get other stuff here, like we get a description of what it feels like to have the curse take effect. Ida recedes into herself the true form of the curse, which we have seen in the Season 2 trailer, roaming around free, so we know it's going to get out somehow. It chases her around while it controls her body in the real world. And there's even some stuff with King here, when he sees how badly Ida and Lilith's mom has let Lilith down in the past. He starts to wonder if his own father might just be neglectful of him and might have just let him down. Which is cool, tying it back to the previous episode, to this new stuff that we know about him was a really good call. But primarily this episode was about introducing us to Ida and Lilith's mom. And I found her annoying. She's that element that's supposed to be annoying in universe. But I liked her a lot as a character. She was really cool. Like, despite the fact that her arc with Lilith in this episode is that she's been kind of neglectful of Lilith because Lilith has always been very self-sufficient and she just didn't feel like Lilith needed her as much as Ida did. You could tell the entire time this woman really loves her daughters. Unfortunately, though, she's an anti-vaxxer and must be purged. Now, I kid, but barely. Like, her whole thing in this is that she wants to find a solution that doesn't involve the elixir, and some of the rhetoric that she uses to express that feels like anti-vaxxer rhetoric. Just as much of it, though, feels like the rhetoric of any parent or authority figure who simply doesn't believe in modern medicine. The specific story of this one is that Luce has been working in her spare time to try to figure out a way back home to the human realm. We already knew that, though, technically. And meanwhile, Ida's been kind of teaching Lilith about the curse, how it gets worse when you're stressed out. Thankfully, though, since they've split the curse, it's not as progressed anymore, so the elixir works again. But that just tells me that it's going to continue to progress and eventually get bad enough that the elixir won't work again, which I'll talk about in a minute, why that's significant. And as this is happening, as Ida is just doing a great job of taking care of her sister and helping her out, and you can tell from some of her expressions and some of her dialogue in this how much Lilith appreciates that. And as Lilith genuinely apologizes to Ida for what she did to her. Like, I would argue she's been apologetic up to this point, and just in her mannerisms and her behavior in general. But to actually say the words, it meant a lot. Like, Ida kind of brushed it off in the way that she does, but she didn't insult Lilith or anything, so you could tell she was appreciative. But just as all of this is happening, their mom shows up and claims to have a cure. And this is when it's revealed that she shows up about once a year, claiming the same thing, and none of her cures have ever worked. This is when we learn, though, that while Ida has kept in regular contact with her mom for this reason, Lilith hasn't seen her mom in forever. Their mom didn't even come to Lilith's admittance into the Emperor's Coven, which, as we know, in-universe is a really, really big deal. And so, knowing now how much time she's put into Ida obviously makes Lilith feel pretty bad. Meanwhile, their mom ropes Luce into helping her try to execute this cure. And she doesn't tell Luce, but she takes all the elixir from the house so that Ida can't just fall back on that. She wants the curse to come out so she can beat it, basically, is what she's trying to accomplish here. And if they just force the curse back inside, she can't do that. So, like, I was literally I listen to narrations of Reddit stories sometimes when I'm doing other stuff. And I just listened to one recently about, it was a mother-in-law, I think, threw out the posters chemo medication because he thought it was harmful, which could have caused complications which might have killed him. And it very much felt like you'll see stories similar to that all the time online. It felt very much like the Owl House crew was trying to evoke that kind of energy with this character here. Like, they even have a scene where she goes to, we find out later they're like 3 or 4 little demons in an overcoat or something. But it was obviously analogous to a person who misappropriates like Eastern religious philosophical stuff to come off as new agey and scam people with alternative medicine, right? Like, it was just analogs of that kind of stuff because they're in the demon realm where that culture doesn't actually exist. But the point still stands. That's clearly what they were trying to evoke. Thankfully, though, Luce is smart and believes in modern medicine, and so helps to fix things. And so does their mom after she goes back to see this guy again and sees him without their costume on, because again, there's multiple of them, I guess, technically speaking. Realizes her mistake, goes apeshit on them, which was very satisfying. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard some story about some quack who claims to be medically trained and isn't, who gets people hurt, and have wanted to sick flaming bees on them. And this character just gets to do that. It was amazing. And she comes back, and she talks to her girls. They're both transformed into their Albeast forms now. And they're fighting. They've been fighting throughout the entire town. And she talks to them. She apologizes to them for the things she did to harm them. And Lilith hears her and calms down. But Ida, hearing her, I don't know specifically why. I'm thinking it was probably something along the lines of the fact that, because what her mom ends up saying is that she made the curse feel like something that Ida should be ashamed of. But now she knows that it's not. I'm thinking that not having to stress over her mother's attitude about this anymore helped her with this, but she's able to get control. she's able to swap with the demon, shrink it down, and become more powerful than it is, and take control like she did when Bellows did that thing to her back in the season finale. It was very cool, and it suggests to me that Albeast Ida, like a cognizant Albeast Ida, might be a recurring thing from now on. It's also super interesting and topical and relevant, I think, and was definitely part of the intended message of this episode, that throughout all of these interactions between Ida and her mom came off as someone who wanted to fix her daughter. It almost felt like they were trying to draw an illusion between a disability and the curse, and show their mom's journey to come to terms with the fact that having a disability doesn't make her daughters lesser. But this does bring us back to something I mentioned earlier, and I do want to take a brief aside to mention this real quick. I mentioned earlier that I think it's very possible that the curse is still progressing and will still, again, progress to a point where the elixir doesn't work anymore. And so I want us as a collective fandom to keep in mind that even if some analogies have been made between the curse and a disability, that's not a one-to-one analogy. This curse is not one-to-one analogous to anything in the real world. So if the curse storyline, if Ida and Lilith's character arcs in general, in one way or another, end with the curse being defeated or cured, I don't want people thinking that that's the show saying that all disabilities should be cured. Because I am full well that there are people out there who believe that disabled people are lesser simply for being disabled. I don't feel like the crew working on this show believe that. And I don't want something akin to all of the teardowns of Steven Universe to happen with this show, just because people think that's something that they're suggesting, when it's not. The fact that it is possibly, and I could still be reading too much into this too, right? But the fact that it is possibly being used in this one story as an analogy for this other thing, this real life thing, does not mean it is always analogous to that thing. Wanted to get that out there. I apologize. Let's just move on and jump right back into the review already in progress. But they do get their elixir and they do turn back, and Lilith leaves poor Lucifer to go and make up lost time with her mom. It was very funny and also quite sad. I feel bad for Hootie, and that's the thing I never thought I'd say. And it was just, generally speaking, a really good episode. Like, some of you guys pointed out that in my review of the previous episode, in my attempt to not spoil the episode too much for you guys, I didn't really talk about the emotional side of everything that was going on with King and how hurt he was by the idea that these people he cares about might have been lying to humor him this whole time, and then how much it meant to him to find out about his dad and stuff. And like, yeah, that's a valid criticism. When my logic brain fires, my emotional brain tends to step back a bit. So I want to get it out of the way right here, right now, before I talk about the lore stuff in this episode. The emotional stuff in this was super strong. Some of the stuff that their mom said to them is the kind of stuff, it's along the same lines as the kind of stuff that I wish my dad might say to me, if he weren't a white nationalist. This episode felt like both a criticism of all of those hokey ideas that I talked about earlier, while also a bit of wish fulfillment for anyone whose parents are kind of terrible, who wish that their parents would change. A bit of a twofer, if you will. And this introduction of the mom suggests that we might meet their dad at some point, which is super interesting. And the dimensional door was just behind their house, in an area that Ida didn't even know was there, which raises so many questions that I want answers for. And then there's also the bit of lore. Like, originally their mom enticed Luce into helping her. Like, Luce probably would have helped her anyway because she wanted to help Ida, but like enticed her into helping her by claiming that she had information that might help Luce in her quest to get back home. And she wasn't lying or exaggerating. She does have information that might help. Two things, in fact. First of all, there's something called Titan's Blood, which is powerful enough to sometimes cause leaks between the worlds. Things cross over fairly often, just not usually whole-ass living humans. But also, two, that I think she said her great-grandmother was her great-grand something. right? That's the important part. It was 2 generations prior to herself. I'm shaking a little bit because this is so exciting. 2 generations prior to herself, there was another human who lived in this same town, at least for a while. He supposedly left something at the library, and that might be something that can help Luce. And, man, the easy answer here is that this is Belos, and I certainly hope it's Belos, because we know Belos took power 50 years ago. 50 years plus that extra push of time is, I think, enough time for him to really get established in this world if he came from somewhere else. If he did bleed in from the human realm. Like, it could totally be someone else, and this also explains the pop culture crossover between the human realm and the demon realm, which is interesting. But if it does turn out to be someone else, it'll still be interesting, and it could still turn out to be someone else. But I definitely feel like this is supposed to be Belos. And I definitely feel like there's going to be a bit of the show where Luce knows about this person and is aware of them and is kind of following clues and learning about them and who they were before she learns that it's Belos. And I'm super excited for that. If that's what they're building up to, that's super exciting. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that this show would build up to. Make them proper enemies by having him be someone who, in his previous life, before he became Emperor Belos, is someone that Luce admired. Right? Kind of like forgive the Harry Potter reference, Half-Blood Prince kind of situation. And yes, I know I'm implying that I think Snape is as bad as Belos. And then if that's not enough, the episode ends on Luce confirming outright that camp would be over by now. And she wonders how sad her mom must be that she's disappeared, only for us to cut to Earth and see that Luce is home. Or at least something that sounds and acts exactly like her, and seemingly looks like her, but we don't actually see its face. So that's just an assumption based on the fact that her mom hasn't run screaming from this thing that's living in her house and pretending to be her daughter, because apparently this thing has been home, living there ever since camp ended, and may be the thing that wrote the letters in the first place. Like, man, I mentioned it a couple reviews back. This show is still following the same formula. There's still A and B and sometimes even C plots. Sometimes they interact with each other, cross over with each other. Sometimes they don't quite so directly. Just like every previous episode of the show from season 1. But they're using their time so much more efficiently. And it's paying off so hard. And you know that this is a show that really cares about its lore. That the crew really cares about this show's lore. Because every time they introduce a new lore tidbit here or there, it's always stuff that, like, it never crushes a fan theory. It just adds fuel to the fire. You can tell the fans have a pretty clear idea of what's going on in this show. The lore is tight and well realized enough that we have some idea what's going on in this show. They're not just like bullshitting this as they go along. It's really super impressive. And while this episode definitely didn't hype me up as much as the last one did, I'm not going to go and start recording lines right now for a theory that got punched up by the stuff in this episode. But I am definitely going to use some of the stuff from this episode in my upcoming Belos theory. In fact, I've already started to rework the first draft script that I'm working off of to incorporate stuff from this episode right now. And it still got me pumped. This episode still got me really pumped to see what comes next. Either way, though, guys, as per usual, I'd like to know, what do you think of this particular episode of The Owl House? Keeping up A-Fear-Ances. I had to think about it for a second, obviously. If you have seen it, let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe. If you haven't, you can also check out the links to my various social medias, as well as all of the many ways that you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.